All right, so our next step is the actual subtractive process, and that part's really, really easy. All we're going to do is take the original frame, right, and that was up here, the extrusion, that's this, and we're going to subtract from it. But that, to me, is a bit of a problem, because what I want to do is to have it subtract perfectly to this top corner, right? No matter how far that extrusion goes, I want this to be a sharp corner, and I want it to taper smoothly down to the opposite corners from there. So, what can I do differently in this definition?
Move everything back.
Yeah, we can move, well, not everything back. What would you move back?
0.2.
0.2, yes, exactly. Oh man, we are making some headway. You guys are learning. Cool. So 0.2 was being moved here, right? And that's what you saw with the amplitude. And if I change that to something else, right, that's going to, sorry, zoom in, double click, make that a 3. That's going to extend that value forward and accentuate that gap even more. So the smarter thing to do here, if I want my point to be exactly on that corner, this corner right here, in all cases, is to plug in my extrusion value that I'm using for my frame. So I'll go back into my other definition here, and I'll find the extrusion for the frame, that's this, and I find that value, that's this, and I'm going to borrow that value. But since I'm borrowing that value, I'm going to make another common param. Now, this one happens to be a number, so I'm going to go up to params, and this time I'm going to pull it from primitive, and I'm going to use this one right here called number. It's a little confusing because you could use integer, but we really just want to use number because it could be any number, even though right now we have a whole number. But anyway, use number. We'll put it down here, and you plug that in, and name it. So what would you name this one? No, this number is representative of what? Why is it relevant? Why am I pulling this number?
Oh, it's for the point?
The frame. It's the frame depth. So I'll right-click this and call this frame depth. And I'm going to do that same, 3-part redundancy thing that I did before. I know it's a little silly. I like to do it. You don't have to do it. It's just what I like to do. So I'm going to copy and paste, put this here, make it wireless. This is the one I'm going to pull back to my common values. So I'll put this now over here. Group that so I know that's the one that is linked back to somewhere in the definition. Then I'll copy and paste this again and start to do my actual active user ones. I know I might have lost a few of you on that one again.
No, you're good. Yeah.
But
I feel like you did.
yeah, well, I mean, it's a little, I mean, the part that's confusing is that there's theoretically no purpose for it at all. I'm giving it a purpose so that I can use it as an organizational tool. So I have 3 of these. I'll even line them up for you so you can see. This is all I just did. I have my number, and I created an empty param to take that number. This one, I made a wireless connection to this one right here, right? So that I could pull this back to my common references panel, like all the way in the top left corner. All my common stuff goes up there. Then I created this third one. That's the one that I'm actually going to pull down and use. So I'll pull that down there, and I'll put this one back up here. Is that clear?
Yeah.
So now this last one up here, right, the first one I created, this one doesn't really serve any purpose except to say, if I trace it back through my definition, I know where I pulled it from. Right? Does that make any sense? You don't have to do all three of these. It's just, I think it's a little easier to read. Okay, so we're going to take this value and we're going to put it in place of this first amplitude. That's this one right here. The one, make sure that it's the amplitude that you used to displace the number 2 point that created these new surfaces. So I'll just plug that in here. Get rid of this panel. So now you see this amplitude doesn't have anything dynamic on it at all. It's just reading the base normal and the frame depth. That is an example of a very intelligent part of a definition. Now, jumping ahead a little bit to finish the thought, and I'll give you a chance to catch up and make those clean connections. The last thing we need to do is take this extrusion and take this union and subtract them. And the tool is under the intersect panel, under the shape, or sorry, the intersect tab, under the shape panel, and we're going to use solid difference. Oops. So this one is a little bit confusing at times. Think of it like the way Rhino is going to ask you to do Boolean difference. It's going to ask you first for the shape that you're subtracting from. That's this. That's the one that's going to remain. And then the second input is going to be the shape that you are subtracting with. That's your deletion. So I'll take this and put that in A. And I like to save before doing Boolean functions on this because they get kind of hairy. So I'll save that, and then I'll plug this into B. It'll take a minute. And what you're going to get is this. I haven't turned anything off yet, but all you need to do is take your old frame, take your extrusion, and turn those off, and you'll have this. Yeah, I know you can't really see it very well, but that's what I did. That's the extrusion, the original waffle frame extrusion. This is the union of your whole mass of extrusions, and then you just take them and put them into a solid difference, and then you're done. Okay? What questions do you have?
It's not working.
Okay, I'll come troubleshoot. Any general questions before troubleshooting?